Hi and welcome. In this lab, we will see how to create security group so that we can control the inbound and outbound traffic on the EC2 instance or on the virtual machine level. So to create security groups, we need to go to the VPC blade. So either you can search here in the search box for VPC, or you can scroll down over here and you will get this option called security groups. So once we are in the security group blade, we just need to click on create security group. So here we need to give the name. So I'm going to give a name as VDA-security group, and then I'm going to give a description which is security group for VDA, and then VPC details. So here we can mention the VPC details on which you wanted to create the security groups. For example, let's say if I go to my VPC, so I have two VPCs over here. So if you wanted to create in any of the VPC, we need to copy the VPC ID and then we need to paste that over here. So let's keep the default one which is selected by the Amazon, which is ending with AD0. So if I go to my VPC, which is this one, VDI-VPC. If you wanted to change, then you can copy this and you can paste it over here. So I will keep the default as it is. Now coming to the inbound rules. So inbound rules, nothing but what are the traffic you wanted to allow to your EC2 instance. By default, there are no inbound rules. So it means none of the traffics allowed to your EC2 instance. So I'll keep as it is. Later we can configure this. So coming to the outbound rules. Outbound rules are nothing but what are the traffic you wanted to allow from your virtual machine or your EC2 instance to outside world. So as you can see here, by default, all traffic to the internet 0.0.0 means internet, which is allowed. It means any traffic from your virtual machine or EC2 instance is allowed to the outside world. So now we need to click on create security groups in order to finish the configuration. So it will take a while and it will create the security group. So as you can see, the security group is created successfully. So if you click on this tab, so it will show under the security group. So our security group is VDA-SG. So if you select this, you will see the details over here. What are the details related to this particular security group? And then what are the inbound rule and what are the outbound rules allowed in this particular security group? As I told you, there are no inbound rule allowed. So it means no traffic is allowed at this moment. However, the outbound rule says that all the traffic from the EC2 instance is allowed to the outside world. So let's bind this particular security group to one of our EC2 instance and we will see the behavior. So under my EC2 instance, I have three virtual machines. One is demo VM, DC, and demo test. So I'll take this first VM, which is demo VM. So as of now, as you can see, by default, I have a security group which is attached to this instance. So when you create any EC2 instance or any VPC, by default, Amazon will create a security group for you. So the default rule will have inbound rule, which is only allow the particular network. I mean the subnets on which you can communicate. You cannot communicate from the outside world. As you can see, we have a security group which is mentioned here, and the type is all traffic. The meaning of this is within the subnet of Amazon you can communicate, but you cannot communicate outside the subnet or outside the VPC. So that is the behavior of default security group. If you go to the outbound rule, so the outbound rule says that any traffic, which means all traffic to the outside world is allowed. So the meaning of this is any traffic from your EC2 instance is allowed if you use the default one. So now coming back to our security group, which is SG. So we will bind this to our EC2 instance. To bind this to our EC2 instance, we need to go to the EC2 blade, and under the virtual machine or VC2 blade, so we will select the EC2 instance, which is demo-VM, and we'll go to the action, and under that we will select security. So here we need to select change security group. So now it will ask which security group you wanted to associate. So I'm going to associate VDA-SG, and also I'm going to remove the default one. So let's remove the default one. So once we remove the default one, then we need to select the required security group, which is the VDI-SG, and then we'll click on add security group. So once this is completed, we can click on save. So now my virtual machine or EC2 instance is using the security group which I created, which is this one. So let's try to turn on the virtual machine and we'll try to take the remote and we'll see what is the behavior. I'll click on connect. As you can see, it is trying to connect, but it will fail. Why? Because the security group, which is having zero inbound rules, this will try to connect to the virtual machine. However, it got failed because we do not have any inbound rule for 3389 traffic to get the RDP traffic to our EC2 instance. So if I go to my security group and if I check my inbound rule, I do not have any rules to allow the traffic. So to add the rule, we need to go to the inbound and then we will click on edit inbound rule. So here we have to define the rule which you wanted to allow. So either you can allow particular port from the particular IP address or you can allow any traffic from the internet. So for simplicity, I will select all traffic and then I will select which is 0.0.0/0, which means from the internet. So the meaning of this rule is any traffic from the internet I'm allowing. So if you wanted to allow only 3389, then you can select custom TCP and you can mention 3389 from here and you can mention your own IP address, which is your public IP address, so that RDP will be allowed only from your IP address. So since this is a lab, I'm going to allow everything from the internet. So I'll click on save rule. So now we have the rule in place. So now if we try to take the remote, so it should work. So I'll go to the downloaded file, which is RDP file, and I'll try to connect once again and we will see the behavior. As you can see, it is prompting me to enter the password. So if I enter the password over here, it will take me to the virtual machine or the EC2 instance. So now I have logged into my EC2 instance via IDP. This is because we allowed the rules in the security group.